Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joseph and welcome to another Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now in today's video we're actually going to be talking about a banner that hasn't actually been announced yet, so I can only hope that with the community stream that's happening very shortly that it does actually end up being the next banner that gets announced, because we're going to hopefully be getting Hope LD along with Boss Rush number 2, which should be arriving pretty soon after the community stream is finished, if my estimation is anything to go by. So if you'd like to learn more about Hope LD, what he brings to the game in terms of his defensive support kit, etc., and of course more about Boss Rush 2 itself, then stay tuned and keep on watching. As always, everybody, don't forget to check out all of the social media links in the description box below, including my Twitter, Twitch, Patreon, Discord. I'm actually going to do my shout out for Patreon first, because I've got a bit of detailing on something that's going to be happening later on the week on Twitch as well. But I shout out one of my patrons every time I release a video, and today that person is going to be Hikaru676, who is a big Auron fan, as you can tell by their title card here. So a big thank you goes out to you for your support, and anyone else who's on Patreon as well. And if you'd like to become a patron yourself, or are considering it, then you can enjoy other benefits such as a title card of your own to feature at the end of all of my videos, as well as being a part of the Would You Pull portion of my videos. And there are some tiers where you can get voice chats with me, so if it's something that interests you, then consider perhaps becoming a patron yourself. On Twitch this week I won't be streaming Final Fantasy 3 or 14 likely this weekend, because on Saturday is going to be my 19 hours versus COVID-19 charity stream, where I'll be streaming 19 hours straight of Chrono Trigger in aid of helping the British Red Cross to help people who have been affected by the pandemic, whether it be financially or physically, mentally, all sorts of things. Everyone has suffered through this pandemic, so if I and we can help that in any way, make even a little bit of difference, then it would be amazing. And we've actually already raised over £300 for it, and the stream hasn't started yet, so if you'd like to learn more about it, then definitely click in the link in the description box below. Don't forget to check out all of the other resources out there for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. They are all linked down below, as well as all of the other content creators that you can just see scrolling up, other than myself. So now let's take a quick look at Hope, his LD, his kit if you haven't used him already, and of course the banner that comes along with him. Now I'm filming this before the community stream goes live, so hopefully there's no more extra surprises after all the ones we've had all the way through February to throw a spanner in the works for this particular video. But as things stand, and going off of the way JP has done things, the banner will contain Hope and his entire kit, including his brand new LD, Ultimecia's burst, and just her burst, but if you haven't gotten that already and you'd still like to, then you have an opportunity to do so here, and it's your last opportunity to do so before it moves over to the next burst character. And then Cloud of Darkness and Shadow will also be along with them for the ride with their EXs. Now Hope, as he is, was actually a very strong character in kind of the mid to late Chaos era, because of his ability to kind of have a really well-rounded defensive support kit that actually complemented similarly to how Penelo worked, but with a slight twist on the framed buff across the board party-wide sort of, you know, buffs that you'd get from doing a similar kind of thing to Penelo. Now, Shell and Protect actually function very similarly. They are both battery parties with no turn count, and Shell in particular is faster, so similar to how Penelo's haste waltz is quicker than her regen waltz is. You kind of like get a similar kind of vibe from that. But Shell will give you 150% of his attack as a party battery, and it'll also give magic damage resist, so as in Shell and Protect, as they would in the game, in the mainline Final Fantasy games, where Protect will give physical damage resistance up. And this actually goes up to 60% as long as you've got everything, like, you know, the crystal passives, the gear, etc. It will give a 60% buff to magic damage or physical damage resist, and you can have them both up at the same time as well. And then Protect will also give the party a speed up, and then Shell will give Hope himself an attack up boost. So these are like very, very simple, but they're very effective. The only thing I will say is that because these are bravery damage reductions, it's a heavy bravery damage reduction, but it is bravery damage reduction. So if you're against an enemy that gains bravery rather than tries to actually attack you to get it, then Hope's not going to be quite as effective with that. I will also quickly mention his C65, which is Protect All, is actually very potent as well, because it reduces party HP damage taken by 40% once you've given it its Bloomstone and everything. You get two uses out of it, so he's actually just kind of a well-rounded defensive support character. And then when we move on to his EX, this actually opens up a really nice kind of offensive capability for Hope as well. Last Resort is a 100% AoE damage attack, which is great off the bat as well. So 4 hit brave HP, but it's not the most like bravery damage, but you're still going to get a decent amount of HP damage as well. And then it batteries the party, and it also heals the party as well, up to 20% of the maximum HP. And you also get a framed buff from this called Bearer of Hope, which asks for the number of buffs across your party, and then that will then give Hope more attack, more max bravery, and more brave overflow limit, depending on how many stacks of entrusted hope he has, or Bearer of Hope is listed here. And then when you went into 3 out of 3, as I said, you get 8 hits of brave HP instead of 4, so it actually does hit fairly hard for a AoE 100%. And then you also get a rework of his Brave and his HP attack. His Brave attack is a 4-hit AoE bravery with a party battery on top of it. And then his Retributive Blast, which is his HP plus, is a 4-hit Brave HP attack with splash damage that actually inflicts a defense down debuff for 40% while it's at it. And you get another additional aura on top of the auras he already has in his kit, for like, you know, his C58, his C68, etc. So you end up with a total of 70% attack, 10% HP, and a 60% max bravery all on top of this. Now, something that I haven't mentioned up until this point that is a massive boost to Hope as well that not many characters have access to is his C50 passive. Whenever he grants a buff, it extends the duration of all buffs on each of your party members by 1 turn, up to only once for that particular buff. If it runs out and then comes back again, then you can extend it again. Now, this is a really powerful thing in the right hands, and if you're taking it along with certain other characters, like Alisaie, for example. Like Alisaie, I've seen some clears recently of DE20 with Alisaie that were masterful over on Alphino Levailleur's channel, so if you haven't seen those, definitely go and check those out as well. And Hope is one of those characters like Sazh that turns Alisaie into an absolute monstrosity by having extra turns of her dual cast buff. And that's just one example. There are plenty of different places where extending a buff can be extremely valuable. And on top of like the defenses, the battery, the only issue he really had is that the only way that he could recover HP as a defensive support character was through his EX. Now, his EX has a fast recast rate, which is fantastic, but you obviously don't want to be burning through his skills just to heal HP. It can be a little bit touch and go. Well, his LD does help that quite a lot. Now, this is another attack that can recover HP, and quite significantly so as well. It is after you've given it its boards, etc., it becomes a 5-hit AoE Brave HP attack that it hits twice, and it also recovers the bravery of your party up to 20% of the damage you've dealt. And then it's also going to inflict a brand new debuff called D-Shell. Now, D-Shell is actually very unique in that it's an Imperil, but it's not tied to an element, it's tied to a damage type. So it lowers magic resistance and increases the bravery damage that enemy takes by 20%. And this lasts for 6 turns. And this basically solidifies Hope as a mage support character because he has so much going for him with the buffs and everything, and because D-Shell specifically targets magic resistance, you're only ever going to want to take him with magic damage dealers. You know, half the reason that I really want Hope is that he pairs up perfectly with a large number of my favourite characters in the game. Like I said, I've already mentioned Alisaie, and this makes her even better. And for a character with only an EX, Alisaie can actually put in some work. But not only her, but Kuja as well. Kuja can benefit from the extra bravery damage on his Seraphic Star, the lowered magic resistance to make Ultima stronger. He's another example of a character that can benefit really well from Hope. And because you already have that Enchant Imperil from Kuja as well, it means that you get to compound that with the Magic Imperil and the fact that you get the damage reduction and the HP heals that you can now get from Hope. It actually all adds up very nicely. He's not going to go with everybody, but it definitely helps him quite a lot. And he gets a significant attack boost as well. So on top of all of these auras that he's giving, the buffs like the speed up is quite nice as well, as long as you're careful not to go too far with speed, because speed ups can interrupt your EX recasts if you're not careful. But all in all, he's actually just solid. Like, there's nothing outwardly wrong with him. He doesn't, like, break the game, but I think that the magic resist Imperil is actually so unique that it at least makes him interesting in a way that other characters just don't have. In terms of cool abilities, etc., Purification, his LD attack, is actually very strong as an LD cool as well. So you get the D shell on top of it. You got to get it for 4 turns instead of 6. You still get the double HP dump on there. You get the HP heal off of it, and it's a half decent hitting attack. But the most important thing is that you get that D shell debuff on it, because people are taking Jack's cool for the same kind of thing, where it increases bravery damage, and this actually does the same thing. But you're only ever really going to take Hope's call while you have a team of magic damage dealers. Because, having the Magic Imperil, you'll want to capitalize on that as much as possible. And then Shell, being his other call ability, is useful. Like, you'll be able to get like a bit of attack up on the caller, but you're going to only ever really use this if you're against primarily magic damage dealing enemies. So you get the fact that you get the party battery and you get the HP heal off of Purification. It's really nice, but it's a little bit more specific as to where it excels and where it shines, just like Hope himself, than some other LD calls. But in the situations where it's good, it's really, really good. And then his artifacts, Attack 108, Max Brave 330. He has an early game kit that obviously gets compounded through reworks, etc. as time goes on. And then with his high armor, he has the support keystone, which I would personally prefer this be the Unity keystone, but some people like the support keystone. I'm less fussed by it, so I probably won't buy this, and then continue to save my high armor tokens. But if you were to pick this up and you plan on using Hope a lot, then I certainly wouldn't hold it against you. So now let's take a quick look through the event that's going to be coming along with Hope's LD, which is going to be the second iteration of Boss Rush. Now, we've had Boss Rush once before when we had Dark Knight Cecil's event come along, and basically all you need to work out is how to take multiple teams through this particular event in as efficient a manner as possible, because you get 50 turns in order to use these characters for as long as you can through this 4-wave fight in order to get them as far as you can, and then you switch team into the next one, and then you carry on as you would normally. Now, any action you take here, whether it be a free turn or otherwise, will count towards your 50 turn count, but your burst and your summon don't, so if you have multiple burst characters, that's going to be really good for you, and it rewards you based on how many teams you used. So in the last one, you got maximum rewards by using 2 teams, whereas in this one, you need to be using 3. So the 4 waves that you'll be fighting have 3 different Lufenia orbs across them, so you're going to need to adjust to these accordingly. The first wave is going to be against Sand Krakens, which has a Lufenia orb for thunder damage, so a Thunder Enchant Imperilla is going to be absolutely mandatory here. But there's luckily many options for this. We've just had Cryo Drop, who is literally perfect for this. You have Desh, you have Raijin, you have Garnet. You've got loads of choices when it comes to thunder damage, so you shouldn't have a problem there. And then past that, you need to be able to deal as well with delay damage as possible, because they like to use their Stone Rut to delay you as much as possible. So I like off-turn damage for this in particular, so trap-based characters like Furion or Gladio or 8 or anything like that are going to be really handy here. And then the second wave is against the Samo 8Gs, which are from they're from FF8, and they basically have an initial bravery down sort of resistance, but that's all you have to really worry about, and they don't have an orb at all, but they do have framed buffs. So if you happen to use Balthea in the first wave and you manage to carry him over into the next one, then you won't have to worry about that quite so much. But basically this is like a buffer between waves 1 and 3 for you to get as much out of your first team as physically possible, so you get as far through into the next one as you can. Now, wave 3 is against the Swarmfly, which we've seen many times. They originated, I believe, in Renoa's first event, and they have a Lufenia orb as well that will appear when you get to around 60% HP, and the requirement for this is that they take sap or poison damage. So there are loads of characters that you can take along to this, because like for this particular orb, so characters like Vincent, Sephiroth, Kefka, Shantotto, Exdeath, there's loads of characters that have access to sap or poison, and it's a great way to kind of use the brand new Vincent that you may have gotten already, just be cautious that they are resistant to melee damage. So if you are taking melee damage, make sure that you're taking an Imperil Enchanter in order to go along with them. And in this case, I actually really like Guy for this because he's going to keep you defended. If you plan on taking Vincent along as well, then the combination of attack down with Vincent, attack and initial bravery down with Vincent, and then the damage reduction that you take from Guy, it's all going to add up and you'll be really safe throughout. And then characters like Sephiroth are just solid damage dealers. Kefka is fantastic for this. It's very, very magic focused for obvious reasons, with Hope being the main character. And then with Wave 4, you're up against Heavy Gunners, which are a variant of the Metal Birds that we've seen many times before. Now, Guy's not going to be so good for this one because they have a major resistance to earth and melee damage, and they also have a resistance to range damage to boot as well. So this is very much, I want to take magic along to this, unless, of course, you're taking certain like characters that have Enchant and Imperil on them. But by and large, you're wanting to take characters that can deal magic damage. Now, the orb here starts at the very, very beginning, and it's there throughout the entire thing, and it requires that you take bravery damage, but less than you should. So it asks for you to bring a brave damage reduction character along with you, which Hope obviously is, but you have other options as well. You know, characters like Warrior of Light or Rude, they all work very nicely as well. Anyone that has brave damage reduction. Sadly, Guy not so much because of his like earth and melee capabilities kind of locking him out a little bit. But after that, you just want to go all in with your damage. So I'm probably going to take Kuja here because he benefits from Hope very much, and as somebody who wants to bring Hope along for this particular fight, I plan to use those two together. And then afterwards, you could kind of throw in any damage dealer here. I kind of want to try the Emperor because I think he's another character that will benefit from Hope really well as well. If you're not wanting to take Hope with you, then you could take along somebody like Kuja who has the Imperil Enchant, and then someone like Gladio instead of taking him in the first wave, because he has the damage reduction on there to boot as well, so you could take advantage of it that way. So basically there's lots of different characters that you can bring along here. Off-turn damage is always going to be really, really useful, so whether that be counter damage or trap damage or like follow-ups, things like that, that's always going to be really helpful in these kinds of missions. And as long as you keep track of what the different Lufenia orbs are, then you'll be able to stay on top of it. So now for the big question when it comes to Hope, should you pull for him? And should you pull on the banner in general? Now, I personally am very invested in Hope. I actually really like the character. I know that's a hot take, a lot of people don't, and that might be a mark against him for you guys, but I actually really like him, and he complements characters that I really enjoy in Opera Omnia already. So like I've said, characters like Kuja, Alize, Ultimecia. There's some really strong combinations of characters that you can make with Hope, and he does do that very, very well. He's a perfect support character for mages. So you've got HP heals that he can now do more frequently, because beforehand he relied on his EX to do it. Now his LD can do it as well. His buff extensions are very rare amongst the cast of Opera Omnia, and they can be very powerful. And the D-Shell debuff is actually very strong, and there's no other kind of debuff like it, because it's a magic Imperil. We've had ranged Imperil from characters like Fran and Irvin before. We've had melee Imperil from Auron, but we've never really had magic Imperil, and Hope now brings that along with a brave damage up percentage as well to boot, and it all carries very well. So if you have spare resources, I'd say that Hope was a decent character to pull for. I don't think he's an absolutely mandatory pick by any means, and there are banners coming up in pretty near to the future that are going to be more demanding on your resources. So while he's really good, and I really like him, I think that this is going to be a banner where some people may choose not to pull for Hope, because his support capabilities are slightly more niche in their use, because his LD debuff, a lot of what he does, is very geared towards magic damage dealers. When he's in the right team, he's extremely powerful, but because D-Shell is specifically magic Imperil, you're not going to take him necessarily over other options if you have physical damage dealers or range damage dealers. Yes, you get the brave percent damage up, but if you have things like Jack Call, etc., you don't need that. And honestly, he's also got the same problem that Penelo has, in that they spawn a large number of buffs. So you get 2 framed buffs across the party with Hope, and a 3rd regular buff in the speed up. and then he himself gives himself attack up as well, make it so that makes him slightly more awkward to place into a team than certain other support characters. But he does bring along a load of auras, he does bring along like massive defenses, and I actually value him quite highly, but I can see why others may not. And if you are low on resources and you want to save up for Cecil while you can, then now is probably the best time for you to be doing so, because then you have all of Onion Knight's banners until we finally get to Cecil. So I really like Hope. I think he's very powerful. He's a character that I've personally looked forward to for a long while. Same like Kryl. I actually do have Kryl LD now. I ended up caving and pulling more because what's new? But I think that because he pairs up with a lot of characters I really like, he's a kind of a character that I'm really looking forward to. But like I said, I don't think he's going to be for everybody. And then lastly, it's time for Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to make your voice heard and let everyone know whether you would or wouldn't pull on a banner and why. Now, Hope actually surprises me a little bit here, purely because of the timing of his banner and how resources are for each person that's voted. Again, massive thank you to all of my patrons for casting their votes and their comments. But with Hope, a lot more people are pulling for this than I thought would going to. So 76.5% of players have said that they're going to use tickets on this banner, 14.7 or 15% of players have said that we're going to use gems on this banner, and only 9% of people said that they weren't going to pull on this banner at all. Now personally, I'm going to try and get it with tickets because I am really trying my hardest just to continually save gems as best that I can, but I think that Hope is a very strong character. He's just a little more narrow than certain others, but where he's narrow with the magic support, he does do very well with the HP and damage reduction as well, so he's very defensively oriented. Now Aurelius here says we'll be pulling with tickets because Hope brings a mechanic that no other character has in the game right now. Also, like Vince, he brings a new dimension to the game and it's fun experimenting with novelty. And I think that Magic Imperil is really like wide open for a lot of characters as well, like seeing characters that have the capability to do a lot like Kuja, and having that Imperil and the bravery percentile damage up is going to help characters like that a lot. Doma Dragoon says, I'm going to try my luck with a fair amount of tickets, but having gotten so many good supports and damage amplifiers recently, Hope just isn't a must-have for me personally. He comes back relatively soon, so I won't feel too bad if I miss out. COD ZX would be a nice bonus. This is an important thing as well. I believe Hope comes back with Golbez's burst sort of in a few months' time. It's quite a way away, but if you're not that fussed about getting him now or you want to save resources, it might be a reason for you to pull then. But bear in mind that if you're wanting to pull for Golbez, it means that you are having to skip pulling for Golbez's LD if you're going to be trying to get Hope later. So if that's something that concerns you, then it might sway you one way or the other as to whether you want to pull now or not. DJ Law says, definitely pulling for Hope. Great support character that can fit with a variety of teams. Plus, I've always been a fan of his. I know he's not a favourite for a lot of people, but he is a favourite of mine, so I'm going all in on for him. I kind of affinity for him. I really enjoy him in FF13 too. I don't enjoy a lot of things about FF13 too, but I quite like Hope in that game. He's a bit, like in FF13 and Lightning Returns when he had literally no personality. But in 13.2 I did quite like him, so I can understand why other people do think highly of him, at least in that space. And then finally, Multiracial Live says, I'll be using gems. This is the only banner this month where I absolutely have to have the LD. Hope is an incredible party unit for a very long while, and a very, very good call after that. With damage reduction, healing, buff extension, battery, max HP overflow, and Magic Imperil and Brave damage up, he's a knockout of a unit. See this, there is a lot there. There is a lot there. The Magic Imperil Brave damage up is just the icing on the cake. If you liked Hope before, you're only going to like him more now. I think the fact that he has the HP healing on top of everything else that he's had as well is actually just very helpful for him. And the fact that he gets the buff extension is a rarity amongst the cast of the game. So I definitely think it's worth having. So that's going to be all for this video. I hope that you've enjoyed it, and I hope that this does end up panning out to be what it is on the community stream. I decided to film it a little bit earlier just to save myself having to rush to get this out, because I feel that if it is going to come out after the community stream, it's going to come out pretty quick after it as well, because we've had a pretty long period of time without anything to play with or anything. It's been since Thursday, so I believe that it should come out very soon, so it'll be Tuesday or Wednesday UK time, depending on what happens with the community stream. So I can only pray and hope that this does go to plan as well. Let me know in the comments below whether you plan to pull for Hope or whether you're actually after some of the other stuff like Ultimecia's Burst, Cloud of Darkness Dizzy X. I don't actually have Cloud of Darkness Dizzy X, so I wouldn't mind getting that either. And of course, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notification on any future videos I might be making. And then I shall see you over the course of the week over on Twitch and probably over on YouTube as well, because we've got the community stream coming. I shall do my recap of that, and there's lots to look forward to. So thank you very much, and I shall see you guys next time. Take care.